Have you read the news lately? Now, many people don't buy newspapers anymore. In fact, this may be the first time I've bought a newspaper in my entire life. Growing up as a kid, I used to deliver the news. So we'd wake up early in the morning to make sure everybody got their newspaper before they woke up, and we'd have them on their step, ready for them to go. Now, when was the last time you slowed down and read the news? Has it been a day, a week, a month? Now, June is known for a couple of big news things that are going to happen. First is the Supreme Court issues a number of rulings during the month of June. The second is NATO has its summit in June, where they come up and they figure out all these big policies and all the things that they're going to work on and come together as a group on. And that all happens in June. And it makes a ton of good information for news organizations to be able to put out there. Now, most news organizations don't put out newspapers anymore. You've got a lot more that have moved online, whether they're producing on their website, whether they're producing on video content. While the news production has shifted away from TV, away from old print newspaper, and away from the radio to the internet, a lot of it's still the same. Now, what do I mean by it's all still the same? Well, if you look at this, what they're trying to do is they're trying to take pieces of information that were important in a moment of time, compile it all together, and share that information with you and get you to focus on that information. Now, let me ask you a question. As a business owner or as an individual, how many of the events that happen at the NATO summit, or how many events that happen in relationship to the Supreme Court rulings that'll come out here in June, how many of those actually relate to your business? Let me ask you another question. You see how thick this newspaper is? It's pretty thick. It's got several pages to it. How much of the information in there relates to you or your business? How much, when you go out to watch the news on your favorite news station or go to their website and look at all the news articles, how many of those have information that actually relates to you and your business? If I were to go through this entire newspaper, and if we looked at it together, I suspect that 99% of it would have zero impact on you or your business. We've talked about attention and the value of attention in the past. I think the news organizations as a whole have done a really good job at making this seem really important. And how do they do that? Well, they do that by making it seem like it's information that we need to know for some urgent sake. Or they'll tell us things that they think will twist our emotions in some way. And so we think we need to be paying attention to that information. Now, recently I interviewed Stephen Young, and he was talking about the importance of focusing on the things within his area of control. And he quoted another individual who said, "It's not in my boat, I'm not going to focus on it," right? Now, as a young man, I grew up and I'd listen to the radio a lot. And I've listened to music for a while, and then I listened to radio shows. And to me, radio shows were the precursor for podcasts, right? And I absolutely enjoyed listening to these radio shows. At least I thought I did. But then one day something happened that really shook me. I was listening to this radio show and they were talking about some issues that were happening on the other side of the world, things that I had no clue about, things that really didn't pertain to me in any way whatsoever. But I was in a vehicle driving around doing stuff all day long. And by the time I got done that day, I was really angry. I was angry at what was happening on the other side of the world. I was angry at all the things that I had heard. I was angry at the way the world was working, and I felt so frustrated. Like, why does the world have to be this way? Why is there all these problems, right? And what I discovered is I took all those emotions home with me, and they affected the way I did business. They affected me personally. They affected my family. And I realized my attention had been diverted from the things that were important to me, the things that were in my boat, the things I could control. They were diverted from that to a bunch of stuff that doesn't really have any direct impact on me, that I have no control over, that even if I wanted to change any of this, I really can't. I have very little control. And so why was I obsessing and focusing and listening to all that stuff that was so negative, that was so frustrating, that would cause me to get so many negative emotions, when I should have been focusing on the positive things, on the things I could control, on the things that I have within my sphere of influence? And that day kind of changed some things for me, because I realized I took that negativity home and I shared it with everyone else, and they didn't need it, they didn't want it, they didn't deserve it. And it also had that same effect on my business that day. So had I been listening to positive things, things that would have helped me be a better person, a better husband, a better father, a better businessman, I could have elevated myself and all of those around me. So it's important, as we're going about life, to pick where we're putting our attention. Are we focusing on the news that has no effect? Or are we focusing on the things that we can control, the things that do matter to us, and the things that will lift us and make it so that we're better in all aspects of life?